Rejection is something we all experience, but that doesn't make it any easier. Whether it's being turned down for a job you really wanted, feeling overlooked by someone you care about, or simply not getting the recognition you hoped for, rejection stings. It touches on our deepest insecurities, leaving us questioning our self-worth, abilities, and even our purpose. But rejection isn't just a cruel, inevitable part of life, it can also be one of our greatest teachers. In fact, rejection offers us something that success and acceptance never can, the opportunity for real growth. It teaches us resilience, humility, and the ability to reflect on ourselves in ways that smooth sailing never would. When we learn how to handle rejection, really handle it, not just shrug it off on the surface but let it transform us from within, we unlock a kind of strength that makes us unstoppable. This essay will dive deep into 6 essential lessons that rejection teaches us, lessons that, when embraced, can empower us to not just survive rejection but thrive because of it. We'll explore how to ignore those who ignore us, why we shouldn't react emotionally to rejection, how to remove the memory of rejection from our minds, the importance of showing our worth through action, why cutting off contact with those who reject us can be liberating, and how to use rejection as fuel to prove ourselves. These lessons aren't just theoretical, they're practical tools for turning rejection into a stepping stone toward success and personal growth. Through personal stories, relatable examples, and actionable advice, this essay will humanize the experience of rejection and show you that it doesn't have to be the end of the road. In fact, it's often the beginning of something much greater. One of the hardest things to deal with in life is feeling ignored. Whether it's someone you care about not returning your messages, a company ghosting you after an interview, or a friend who suddenly seems distant, being ignored can feel worse than outright rejection. The silence is deafening, and our minds tend to fill in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. Did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Do they not care about me at all? These are the kinds of thoughts that flood our minds when we're left in the dark. But the truth is, being ignored is rarely about us. People are wrapped up in their own lives, dealing with their own challenges, and their silence often has more to do with them than it does with us. Still, it's easier said than done to not take it personally. Our first instinct is often to chase after the person who is ignoring us, to demand answers or closure. We think that if we can just get a response, we'll feel better. But in reality, seeking validation from those who ignore us usually leaves us feeling worse. So, how do we learn to ignore those who ignore us? It starts with a mindset shift. Instead of viewing their silence as a reflection of your worth, recognize it for what it is, their decision, their priorities, and often their loss. When someone ignores you, especially without explanation, it's a sign that they may not value your time or presence as much as they should. And why should you waste your energy on someone who doesn't see your value? Take control of the narrative in your mind. Instead of obsessing over why someone isn't responding, focus on the people who do show up for you. There will always be those who appreciate and recognize your worth, and they deserve your attention far more than those who don't. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, and let go of the need to chase those who don't. It's also helpful to engage in activities that bring you fulfillment and joy. When you're focused on your own growth and happiness, the sting of being ignored fades away. You're too busy living your life and thriving to worry about those who aren't paying attention. Over time, you'll find that the people who matter most are the ones who never ignore you in the first place. Ignoring those who ignore you is ultimately about respecting yourself. It's about recognizing your own worth and not allowing someone's silence to make you question it. By choosing to focus on yourself and those who value you, you reclaim your power and set yourself up for stronger, healthier relationships in the future. Rejection hits hard, and when it does, our emotions often take over. Whether it's anger, sadness, frustration, or all three, it's easy to let rejection push us into a spiral of negative feelings. We might want to lash out at the person who rejected us, wallow in self-pity, or retreat from the world entirely. These emotional responses are natural, but they're rarely productive. Reacting emotionally to rejection can often make things worse. In the heat of the moment, we might say or do things we regret later. We might burn bridges, hurt relationships, or damage our own self-esteem further. Think about the times you've sent an angry message after being ignored, or when you've let rejection stop you from pursuing something you truly wanted. Those emotional reactions felt justified in the moment, but did they help you in the long run? The key to handling rejection with grace is learning how to manage your emotional response. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings, far from it. It's important to acknowledge how you feel and give yourself the space to process those emotions. But there's a difference between feeling your feelings and letting them dictate your actions. One of the best ways to avoid reacting emotionally is to give yourself time and space before responding to rejection. If someone turns you down or ignores you, don't respond right away. Take a step back, breathe, and let yourself calm down. This gives you the chance to think clearly and decide how you want to move forward. It also prevents you from saying or doing something in the heat of the moment that you might regret later. For example, if you've just been turned down for a job you really wanted, your first instinct might be to fire off an angry email or rant about the unfairness of the situation. But after taking some time to cool down, you might realize that a more productive response would be to ask for feedback or use the rejection as motivation to improve your skills for the next opportunity. Another strategy is to remind yourself that rejection isn't necessarily a reflection of your worth. Just because someone didn't choose you, doesn't mean you're not valuable. Rejection often has more to do with timing, circumstances, or personal preferences than it does with your abilities or potential. By keeping this perspective in mind, you can detach emotionally from the rejection and see it as a part of life rather than a personal failure. Finally, don't be afraid to reach out for support when you're feeling rejected. Talking to a friend, family member, or therapist can help you process your emotions in a healthy way and provide you with the perspective you need to move forward. Sometimes, just hearing someone else tell you that you're not alone in your feelings can make all the difference. Learning not to react emotionally to rejection takes practice, but over time, it can help you develop greater emotional resilience. By keeping your cool in the face of rejection, you'll not only preserve your self-respect but also increase your chances of turning that rejection into an opportunity for growth. When we're rejected, it's easy to get stuck in a loop of overthinking. We replay the rejection in our minds, analyze every word and action, and wonder what we could have done differently. It's as if the person who rejected us takes up permanent residence in our thoughts, haunting us long after the rejection itself has passed. But holding on to these thoughts only prolongs our suffering and prevents us from moving forward. One of the most powerful lessons rejection teaches us is the importance of removing the person or situation that rejected us from our minds. This doesn't mean forgetting the experience entirely or pretending it didn't hurt. It means letting go of the emotional hold that rejection has on us and freeing ourselves from the mental prison we've created. Removing someone from your mind isn't easy, especially if the rejection was personal or came from someone you cared about deeply. But it's necessary if you want to heal and move on. One of the first steps in doing this is to stop obsessing over what went wrong. It's natural to want to understand why the rejection happened, but there comes a point where continued analysis does more harm than good. Sometimes, there's no clear answer, and even if there is, dwelling on it won't change the outcome. Instead of focusing on what could have been, shift your attention to the present moment. Engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. When your mind is occupied with positive, productive tasks, there's less room for thoughts of rejection. Over time, the person or situation that rejected you will fade into the background as you create new memories and experiences. Another important aspect of removing someone from your mind is setting boundaries. This can be especially challenging in the age of social media, where it's all too easy to check up on the person who rejected you or keep tabs on their life from afar. But doing so only keeps you tethered to the rejection. Unfollow, mute, or block them if necessary. Out of sight, out of mind isn't just a saying, it's a powerful tool for emotional healing. You may also need to distance yourself from physical reminders of the rejection. If someone rejected you, especially in a personal context, it's helpful to remove objects, gifts, or photos that bring back memories. These items can serve as emotional anchors, keeping you tied to the past when what you really need is to move forward. It's important to remember that removing someone from your mind isn't about denying your feelings or pretending the rejection didn't hurt. It's about prioritizing your emotional well-being and choosing to let go of the hold that rejection has over you. This process takes time, and there may be moments when the person or situation pops back into your mind. When this happens, gently redirect your thoughts to something positive or productive. Over time, the frequency and intensity of these thoughts will decrease, and you'll find yourself thinking less and less about the rejection. Ultimately, removing someone from your mind is an act of self-love. It's a way of reclaiming your mental and emotional space, allowing you to focus on what truly matters, your growth, happiness, and the people who uplift and support you. Rejection often makes us feel small, unworthy, and invisible. But instead of letting those feelings define us, we can choose to prove our worth through action. When someone rejects us, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking validation through words or approval from others. We might try to convince the person who rejected us that they made a mistake, or we might seek out praise and recognition from other sources to soothe our bruised ego. But true self-worth doesn't come from external validation, it comes from within. One of the most empowering ways to respond to rejection is to show, not tell, your worth. This means focusing on your goals, working hard, and achieving success on your own terms. Instead of seeking approval from others, seek to impress yourself with what you're capable of. When you prove your worth through action, you take control of your narrative. You're no longer waiting for someone else to recognize your value, you're creating your own path and showing the world what you're made of. This shift in mindset is incredibly powerful, and it often leads to greater opportunities and recognition than you would have received if you had continued seeking validation from those who rejected you. For example, if you've been rejected from a job, don't let it define your career. Instead, use it as motivation to work harder, improve your skills, and land an even better position. Let your success be the response to that rejection. Similarly, if someone rejects you in a personal relationship, don't waste time trying to win them back. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself, and you'll naturally attract people who appreciate and value you. Proving your worth through action also involves setting goals and taking steps toward achieving them. This gives you a sense of purpose and direction, helping to shift your focus away from the rejection and towards something positive and productive. Whether it's advancing in your career, pursuing a personal passion, or working on self-improvement, setting goals allows you to channel your energy into something meaningful. It's important to remember that proving your worth isn't about showing off or seeking revenge. It's about recognizing your own value and living up to your potential. When you focus on what you can achieve, you'll naturally attract opportunities and people who see your worth. And in the process, you'll realize that the rejection you once thought was so devastating was actually a stepping stone to something greater. One of the most liberating things you can do after being rejected is to cut off contact with the person or situation that rejected you. This may seem drastic, but in many cases, it's necessary for your emotional well-being. When we continue to engage with those who have rejected us, whether it's through direct communication or by keeping tabs on them from a distance, we're essentially keeping the rejection alive in our minds. We're giving it power over us, allowing it to shape our thoughts and emotions. Cutting off contact doesn't have to be a dramatic, confrontational act. It's simply about creating space for yourself to heal and move on. This might mean unfollowing someone on social media, deleting their number from your phone, or politely declining future interactions. The goal is to create a boundary that protects your mental and emotional health, allowing you to focus on your own growth and happiness. In some cases, cutting off contact can be the most empowering thing you can do. It sends a message, not just to the person who rejected you, but to yourself, that you value your own well-being and that you're not willing to invest energy in someone or something that doesn't value you in return. This act of self-respect can be incredibly healing, helping you to regain your sense of self-worth and move forward with confidence. Of course, cutting off contact isn't always easy, especially if the rejection came from someone you care about deeply. There may be moments of doubt, where you wonder if you made the right decision or if cutting off contact was too extreme. In these moments, it's important to remind yourself why you made the decision in the first place. You deserve to be surrounded by people who value and appreciate you, and sometimes that means letting go of those who don't. In time, you'll find that cutting off contact creates the space you need to grow and heal. You'll be able to focus on the people and opportunities that truly matter, and you'll no longer be weighed down by the emotional baggage of rejection. Rejection can be a powerful motivator if you learn how to harness it. When someone tells you that you're not good enough, that you're not the right fit, or that they don't want you in their life, it can feel like a punch to the gut. But instead of letting that rejection defeat you, use it as fuel to prove yourself. Proving yourself after rejection doesn't mean trying to win back the approval of the person or situation that rejected you. It means proving to yourself that you're capable, worthy, and resilient. Let the rejection serve as a reminder that you have something to prove, not to others, but to yourself. One of the best ways to use rejection as fuel is to set new goals and work relentlessly toward achieving them. Whether it's advancing in your career, improving a skill, or pursuing a personal passion, channel the energy of rejection into something productive. Let it drive you to work harder, smarter, and with more determination than ever before. Many successful people have used rejection as a catalyst for greatness. Take J.K. Rowling, for example, who was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Or Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from her first television job and went on to build an empire. These stories remind us that rejection isn't the end, it's often the beginning of something greater. When you use rejection as fuel, you also shift your focus away from the rejection itself and towards something positive. Instead of dwelling on the pain of being turned down, you're actively working to create new opportunities for yourself. This forward momentum can be incredibly empowering, helping you to regain your confidence and sense of purpose. It's also important to remember that proving yourself doesn't mean achieving perfection or winning over everyone who has ever rejected you. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable of growth and that you have the strength to overcome obstacles. Each small victory, whether it's learning a new skill, landing a job, or building a meaningful relationship, is a testament to your resilience and worth. Ultimately, rejection is a part of life, but it doesn't have to define us. By learning from it, using it as fuel, and focusing on our own growth, we can turn rejection into one of our greatest strengths. Instead of fearing rejection, we can embrace it as an opportunity for transformation and empowerment. Through these lessons, we learn that rejection isn't the end of the road, it's just a detour. And often, that detour leads us to places we never could have imagined.